BDSM and non-standard relationships,
power exchange and polyamory,
sacred sexuality and fetishes, as well as simply fun kink.
You're listening to the Erotic Awakening Podcast Network. Listening to Mistress Simone on the FDM011 podcast.
I don't like to pigeonhole myself or what we're talking about because many of the topics can be broad spectrum and used for all genders and all sexualities, but this is the dynamic that we focus on within this podcast. If you are not of that dynamic, I do hope you will take a listen and maybe something will be useful while you are on your kinky journey. Welcome to 2016, my listeners. It's been a very busy few months for me in the beginning of this year, so I've been bad about getting to the podcast, but I'm hoping that with things leveling off, that the FDM011 will become much more of a regular occurrence for you, my loyal listeners. We are going to be adding a wonderful feature coming up. It's called the Dom Interviews, where I will be interviewing both well-known professional and lifestyle dominatrixes, mistresses, tops. And I will be visiting many of them in DomCon LA in May, including I'm interviewing Mistress Simone, the founder of DomCon LA. That should be an exciting feature coming up. Look for it later in May, June. But today, our topic is something which I have a hard time with, I often struggle with, and it was suggested by a conversation I had with a lifestyle friend of mine, one that I am mentoring. It is the topic of self-care within our scene and how we go about it. And what I mean by self-care is very clearly self-care. How do we balance the issues that we have in regards to taking care of our own psyche and our own physical, spiritual, and emotional well-being while we take care of those that are in service to us and that we are playing. And I'm going to focus on how this affects the dominant in this context. There is a lot written out there about how a submissive needs to balance their own self-care. So I would suggest that if you are interested in the topic of submissive self-care, that you do some research online. There are some wonderful articles written by some wonderful submissives on how to balance taking care of your dominant and taking care of yourself. But this particular rant or conversation is going to focus on how the dominants take care of themselves while also taking care of the submissives, because this is a power exchange and it is a two-way street. Many mistresses that I am friends with are awful at self-care. I find that we tend to be very empathic creatures. We want to make sure our submissive is well cared for, make sure our submissive is happy, content, and sometimes we can do so at the expense of our own happiness and our own well-being. I am notorious for not taking care of myself. If you ask my slaves, especially MKCB, he will tell you that ma'am does not take care of herself. She doesn't eat right, she doesn't sleep right, she doesn't fill in the blank right. My partner agrees with him. And sometimes the two of them gang up on me because the slave has permission from the partner to nag ma'am to take care of herself. Part of this comes from my career, my chosen career, as a professional dominatrix of 23 years. Many people think that, wow, that's a wonderful career. You get to boss people around. You get to beat the shit out of people. Well, honeys, I hate to tell you, that's not what our job is about. That's not what we do. We facilitate the fetish fantasies of those that come to see us. And we are focused on what they desire. Yes, I get to interpret their desires as I see fit, which is where the artistic side of my job comes in, which I love. I mean, if you guys have seen my pictures on websites, you know that bondage, especially creative bondage, was one of my favorite things to do. But if someone comes to me and they have a specific scenario or a specific power exchange they want, once I talk to them and find out what they are interested in, it is my goal to facilitate a successful exchange with them, one that we both enjoy. But it is focused around their interests. If someone comes to see me and has no desire to be beat, I would be doing them a disservice as a professional to beat the shit out of them. If someone is not submissive and a simple bondage toy, a bondage bottom, a pain slut, and they express that desire, and I try to force them into a submissive role because I'm the dominant, I'm supposed to do whatever I want, then again, I'm doing them a disservice and the power exchange will not be healthy. So, as a professional dominatrix, we expend a lot of energy, both mental and emotional and spiritual, on creating a safe power exchange environment for those who come to see us. This also extends into lifestyle. When I play with someone lifestyle, there tends to be a little bit more give and take in regards to what activities we're going to do. As a lifestyler, I have a choice of, you know what, I really need to beat the shit out of someone. I am in a sadistic mood and I need a masochist. And if that evening someone comes to me and says, well, I really would like to be tied up and just left for sensory deprivation, I have more of a ability to say, I'm not really interested in that tonight. It wouldn't facilitate my energy exchange, and I don't want to do both of us a disservice as not by not giving you a good scene. I'm more in the mood for X tonight. So, taking this into consideration, playing and dominance can create a great energetic drain on the mistresses. With our busy lives, fitting in play by itself can be challenging. My partner and I would play every day if we could. He's a bondage baby and he loves to be tied up and he loves to wear restrictive clothing. So if I put him in something every day and we did a little play every day, he would be happy as a pig in shit. However, life gets in the way. We have this to do, he works late, I have clients, we have to run over and take care of the family, the dogs need feeding, the house needs cleaning, the bills need getting paid. So finding time for play in itself can be challenging. Admitting this is the first to self-care. Trying to do it all will lead to burnout. It has for me. I've been burned out twice. Probably more and just didn't realize it. So admitting that sometimes your daily lives get in the way of what you actually want to do is one of the first tenets of self-care, because you're being realistic about what you can and cannot do. If you feel pressured into play because you should be playing because you're in this DS setting, you're in this DS lifestyle, then what's going to happen is you're going to build up resentment. Eventually, you're going to look at your partner or your slave or your submissive. If everybody's been listening to this, you know how I feel about labels. I try to be as politically correct as I can about labels, but I'm a mistress and that's where my point of view comes from. So if you don't like it, I'm sorry, too bad. But I do try to be respectful of everyone's labels. So insert your label here. After 8 hours of sessions in a day, if I come home and my partner is, desirous of another 3-4 hours of heavy bondage at our home, I may or may not be in the mood to do it. I may be exhausted and energetically drained from my submissives during the day, and to come home and still have to do another 4 or 5 hours of heavy bondage may cause me to be resentful. So part of self-care is self-actualization, is realizing your own limitations when you want to do something, and to be honest and communicate it to the person that you're playing with. If I say, okay, fine, and we play for 3-4 hours, it may or may not be a good scene. most likely my energy will be off and I will be upset that I have to come home and do this instead of just spending time with him and cuddling and, playing with our puppies. And resentment may build up. I may feel that I'm not getting my own needs met, which leads us into the next tenet of self-care, acknowledging your own needs. So the first tenet of self-care is realization of limitations. And that's at the beginning of the scene. We're not talking about aftercare yet. We're not talking about daily, weekly, what you can do for self-care. We're talking about at the start of relationships and the start of scenes and being aware of how you are feeling that particular day. It may change. I may come home hyped up from, 8 hours of sessions and be in a mood and just want to tie him up and use him and abuse him because my energy's so high and I'm so pumped. And if I come home and he's not in the mood because he had a hard day at work, I have to take that into consideration. You want to be realistic with yourself and your partners. Don't feel forced and pressured into play as the mistress. You have the right to say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not in the mood right now, my headspace is not there. You also have the responsibility to accept their no if they say, ma'am, I'm not able to do that tonight. I had a hard day at work. I spent the evening cleaning the house until you got home. I've made dinner for you. I really would like to just do some service. You have to have open ears. One thing I tell people in this lifestyle is you have to have open ears. You may want one thing from your slave, and your slave may not be able to do it. You have to be willing to hear that. So, let's go.
Let's go back to our own needs in regards to self-care. So we've identified some of the things that we need to do in regards to listening and communication. But part of what self-care covers is, what does that mean to you? The self part and the care aspect. Not everything is going to work for everyone. And you need to identify what your self-care looks like. My self-care looks like a few things. And some of them may surprise you to learn about, ma'am. My self-care is not meditation. I cannot meditate and shut my brain off to save my life. If the zombies were attacking and I could make my own force field by meditating, I'd be eaten. Meditation works for a few of my girlfriends. It does not work for me. What works for me is my hot yoga. Hour and a half every day. No music, no social media, no phone calls. Myself, my fellow classmates, my instructor, 104-degree temperature, sweating my ass off. That's all I'm concentrating on, is getting my body into the positions it needs to get into. It's myself and myself, which I know sounds kind of funny, but for you, it may be the same. It may be a heavy workout. It may be going to the gym for an hour and hitting the bag. It may be walking. Self-care is very individualistic. It's very much like play. What does it for one person may not do it for another. So you have to do some research and some self-study into what works for you. The other thing that works for me is actually smoking a good cigar, sitting with my boy, with my slave, feet up, good cigar, shot of scotch, neat, and just chilling. Good conversation, not feeling pressure to play, not feeling like I have to throw them into bondage for 4 hours, just enjoying the love, enjoying the conversation. Helps me de-stress. The other thing that helps me de-stress is reading a good book. Ma'am is an avid reader, and having the chance to actually read something is amazingly hard for me to do. My life is so swamped and so busy with things that I have to do that when I get a chance to actually read a chapter or even a few pages in a book I'm enjoying, that is very good decompression for me. So as you can see, these are very specific, individualistic things. You need to find out what your own self-care needs are. So that would be the what in the self-care aspect. Then we have the when. When I am home in St. Louis, I go to yoga every morning. If I have someone who wants a session, and that's the only time they can make it is when my yoga class is scheduled, I'll go to the later class. But I try to make an effort to do my yoga every day because I know it helps keep me balanced. It helps keep me energetic. It helps keep me focused so I can come up with creative bondage scenarios for the people I'm going to see. However, when I travel or I'm in Chicago, this self-care aspect goes out the window for one reason or another. When my slave comes to visit me in Chicago, I tend not to go do my yoga because he's there to see me, so I feel that I must spend all my time with him, even though he has looked straight at me and says, "Ma'am, go do your yoga. I'll be here when you get back." We've been together for close to 9-10 years, and I still feel like his service and his submission is more important while he's with me because we get to see each other so rarely that I need to put my own self-care on hold. This leads to some resentment. I don't get the decompression that I need. I don't get to relax. I don't need to get physically better and emotionally more balanced because I'm not doing the self-care I usually do. So my schedule gets all screwed up. Then it's 4 or 5 days I don't get to go to yoga. I come home. I get 4 or 5 days to make up. I have a girlfriend who, whenever she travels, she finds a studio and she does her yoga. And she has told me that for my own self-care, I need to do the same. Yet I tend to book myself so fully when I travel or I'm in Chicago that there is no time for my self-care. There is no time for my yoga. I need to realize that my boundaries are not set in a healthy way for myself. And I need to reaffirm that I need to do this for myself. My slave will always be there. If me going to yoga makes him not my slave, then he's not worth being my slave because he would want me to take care of myself. And this is something you need to tell your submissives or your partners. Me being able to take care of myself and making myself more balanced and focused and healthy enables me to take care of you better, give you a better scene, be more energetic for our play, be more excited for our play. So if you don't want me to do something that will enable me to facilitate your submission better, then I'm not so sure I want you to serve me because the focus is on you and not us. So, the when. Make sure you allow a little bit of self-care every day. Whether it's a half hour at the front, a half hour at the end, whatever your self-care is, make sure that you fit it in every day a little bit so that you stay healthy and balanced. Maintaining it can be a very big challenge, as I just said. It depends on where I go. If I'm visiting Miss Winter in New York, do I want to take time and go to the Bikram yoga studio? I don't get to see my friend that often. Am I taking away time from her? Well, no, because the self-care is important to my emotional and physical well-being. Need to make an effort to maintain it. So, communication, very important. Maintaining, very important. Techniques, what works for you, very important. Boundaries, setting and keeping, very important. Remember that within all of this self-care talk, coming from a power exchange basis, we have to keep in mind that we are human beings first. and then power exchange people second. And as human beings, we all need to decompress. We all need to relax. We all need to focus on ourselves once in a while. Adding the context of being in a power exchange relationship can make this very challenging. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm very good at saying what I want. I'm very clear at saying what I want. If you follow my Twitter feed, you can see, ma'am wants this, ma'am wants that. But in regards to actually taking care of myself, that is a big challenge. We are so used to taking care of others. We are so used to taking care of our submissives. I have daily structure for all my submissives. MKCB must eat lunch. Otherwise, he'll go without eating all day. Yet what do? I eat once a day. He has to go to bed at a regular time. My female slave has to be in bed by midnight. She needs 8 hours of sleep. Yet what do? I stay up to 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock watching horror movies and then complain that I'm very tired. It's a bit hypocritical for me as the mistress to provide them with structure, yet have none on my own. I have a new boy, Jack Cyber, and we are working on his dietary plans. His dietary plans help me focus on eating better myself. If I can help him, I can therefore help me. He is no more important than I am. We are both in this together as human beings and mistress and submissive. And this leads me to the last thing about self-care, and that is your support network, those who surround you. I suggest every mistress, every top, every dominant, have a fellow top or mistress that they can share things with. Now, this doesn't mean get together for coffee and bitch about your submissives every day. Every once in a while, that's okay. You all need to vent. We all need to release things. We all need to share and say, my slave did this today. Has yours ever done this? Does this make sense to you? Because otherwise I think I'm crazy. We always need to kvetch, a word that I've always loved. But what I mean from a support network is, for example, I have inspiration with my girlfriend, Irene Boss. I went to my first Bikram yoga class with her. She's the one who introduced me to it. When I walked out of the first class with her, I looked at her and I said, I hate your guts. And she started laughing and said, you'll be fine. You'll like me tomorrow. It gets easier. And she kept, asking me if I was going. And seeing her changes and her improvement and with her support saying, yeah, you're doing it. And all the support of my peers helps me keep on track. Knowing that I'm not out there struggling alone, that I actually have someone who's sharing things with me, whether it's peers or friends or partners or submissives, like Jack Cyber, who I'm working with in regards to his diet, and therefore it helps me with my diet. These people are your support network, and they are there to create a positive feeling in your self-care. If you have someone who's in your support network who is very, what I call the negative Nancy, I have a negative Nancy. Everything that comes out of her mouth is negative. The sky is falling. She's like Chicken Little. And it's a very negative drain on me. So I have actually removed her context from my life because of the negative energy that she creates. I don't want to have someone in my support network who's not supportive. That's the key word in it. So if someone is very negative, you might want to review the interaction that you have with them. And is it a positive one that you want to keep in your life? And this goes for beyond BDSM, beyond power exchange. This is just life in general. It's too short for us here to be thinking of negative things. There's enough negative things in our world, especially on Facebook and Twitter, that can affect our mood. I don't need that in my environment. I want a positive influence surrounding me, someone or something that's going to support me. So have someone to talk to. And it doesn't have to be someone who is into the BDSM. My yoga teacher is a wonderful motivator. I come out of class and he's like, yeah, you did that bend a little bit more today. You're making progress. Look at you getting toned. He's very supportive. Now, yes, I pay him for classes, so you'd think he'd want me to keep coming back. So he says that. Yet not every teacher does that. Not every sensei does that. Some just take your money and go, just like some pro-doms. So it really depends on what kind of interaction do you want in your life. Surround yourself by positive people that will create a good environment with you and enhance the power exchange that you share together. In closing, I'd like to sum it up by saying, open ears. Keep your ears open. Know what you want. What are your own needs? Maintain it. Even if you have to change what you're doing, maintain your self-care. You may not be able to go to the gym every day. So what can you do instead? Can you stretch at home? Can you go for a walk at home? Can you, if you're traveling like so many of us pro-doms do, is there a gym nearby? So keep an open mind in regards to maintaining your self-care. It may have to change while you're traveling or our busy lives get in the way. Don't beat yourself up when you don't get to do it every day, like I do. If I don't get to do yoga every day because of a session or because, I'm on vacation or I'm traveling and I'm driving all day, I don't get to go do it, I end up beating myself up going, that's it, I'm a failure. Those kind of negative thoughts are very anti-self-care. Try to keep a positive headspace. Energetic drain. Note what kind of energetic drain people have on you. Is it a good drain or is it a negative drain? If it's a negative drain, set boundaries with them. Limit their interaction with you, thus limiting the negativity that they infuse into your life. If the negativity is all-encompassing, you might want to consider not having a relationship or reaffirming the boundaries with that person. Limit the negativity in your life. Create a positive space for yourself, thus increasing your self-care. And the last thing to remind you of is a support network. Find a friend, find a fellow mistress, someone you can talk to, partner, whoever, some workout buddies, something that can be supportive of your self-care and realize that it is a vital part of being a human. And that we all need a little bit of downtime and we all need a little bit of space to breathe. And being a mistress is a wonderful thing, but it is also a very challenging thing and a very intense thing. And every once in a while, I just need a good cigar and a good scotch and to have my feet rubbed. Thank you very much. This is your hostess, Mistress Simone. I hope I haven't rambled too much about self-care. Remember to keep open ears, and I will be talking to you soon. Thank you for joining me in this episode about self-care.